In this lecture, we are going to examine how to install ASP.NET Core RC2 on our Windows device, and then we're going to run a console app and then generate a scaffolded ASP.NET Core app utilizing Yeoman. Let's go ahead and download the cross-platform ASP.NET Core RC2 update. So let's go over here, and we're going to type in the URL www.microsoft.com/net. And right here, you can see we can download the full .NET framework, we can download .NET Core, and we can also download Xamarin. So we're going to go down here and click Download .NET Core. In this lecture, we're going to download it for Windows. In the subsequent lectures, we're going to download it for Linux, and we're going to use Ubuntu. And then for OS X, we're going to implement that as well. So this is where you would download and install the .NET Core SDK. Since we're going to be implementing it for Visual Studio, we would download the Visual Studio official MSI installer, and then we would also download the latest NuGet Manager extension for Visual Studio. So if you're a Visual Studio user, which if you're on a Windows device, there's no reason why you would not want to install and use Visual Studio. You can also come down here, you can download the .NET Core SDK for Windows if you want to utilize it via command line. It teaches you how to run some of the code. If you want to create a directory, then cd to that directory and then create a new application, running the .NET Restore and the .NET Run. As you can see, it's not using the DNX runtime in RC2, and in the final version, which is supposed to be released in June, we have this new command line usage of .NET, and the DNX and the DNVM are deprecated and not used anymore. So we're going to go ahead and show you how to build console application and run it via the console, and then we're going to utilize the Yeoman generator. I'm not going to go ahead and install Node.js or the Yeoman generator associated with the NPM modules. We've already done that when we created our first ASP.NET Core application RC1. So you can refer to those lectures on how to do that. But I will also put some documentation in this section on how to do that as well. So let's close out of our browser. Just remember before we close out of our browser to download the official MSI installer and the NuGet Manager extension for Visual Studio. And then if you want to utilize via command line, you can just download the .NET Core SDK for Windows. I'm not going to demonstrate how to install that. It's pretty self-explanatory. Run through that process, you should have no problem. So let's exit out of this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to come down to Windows PowerShell. And I'm going to click that, and I'm going to go to my console app directory, as you can see right here. So I'm going to go cd, desktop, console app. And then inside of my console app, I'm going to create, with utilizing the new .NET CLI, .NET new. And this is going to create a new console app inside of my folder. So if I open up this folder, I see a program.cs. I'm going to edit this and open it with Notepad. And it says public static void main, and then it's console.writeline, hello world. I'm going to change this to first app. Save that, close that. And then I'm going to go to my project.json file, and I'm going to open this with Notepad as well. You can see the build options to associate the emit entry point, which associates in my program.cs file to implement what's in the public static void method. And then I have my dependencies to associate with Microsoft.NET Core.app, and it's pulling in RC2 version. And then the frameworks I'm associating inside of my application is .NET Core App 1.0, which is implementing the DNX Core 50. So now that we have all of that set up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to restore my app to build the references in my project.json. So let's do .NET restore. And it's restoring all of the package to associate inside of my project.json. So all of those dependencies that are associated in my project.json are going to build. And then once they build, I'm going to run my application, and it should print out first app. So give it a second while it runs. Right there. Look at that. It generated the project lock.json. And as you can see, that's associated with my project.json. So once I've set up .NET new to create my app and then .NET restore, now I'm going to put .NET run. And let's see what happens right here. It's compiling. And as you can see right here, what does it write out? So once it compiled, look what it's writing out to the console, first app. And as you can see, I have a bin directory that is emitted and built once I ran it. And you can see the debug to associate. And now I have my DLL, the console app.dll, that's generated once I build my application and run it. And you can see that this is what's generated to associate with my object and my .NET Core. It gives assembly info and it gives the SDK version. This is what it builds when I implement my ASP.NET Core application. So this is a console app, and this is how we'll emit and build our application from there. And once we do that, let's go over here and open up another PowerShell instance, and we're going to do cd desktop yo ASP.NET. And you can see in my folder right there, yo ASP.NET. So I'm going to that directory, and then I'm going to type yo ASP.NET to associate it with the Yeoman generator. And now I have all of the different applications I can build. I can build an empty web application, a console app, a web application basic. I have all the different versions to associate in this. And now sometimes you may notice with the version you have, it may lock up. So right now, my Yeoman generator is locked up. I cannot arrow key down. And this is good that this happens because I want to show you a workaround. So what we can do is we can exit out of this. If you ever get into that lockup with that Yeoman generator on Windows 10, you can go back to that directory. Let's go to yo ASP.NET. That's the folder. And then you can just type yo, because it's known for that inquire.js and the Yeoman dependencies, that sometimes that generator will lock up. You can type yo. To bypass that, just select ASP.NET generator. And then, look at that. It's a little bug associated that with the node version you have in the Yeoman generator. That's a workaround for you if you run into that issue on Windows 10. I have not run into that issue on Linux or Mac OS X, but on my Windows 10 device I have a couple of times. So let's go over here and we can generate a console app if we want, or an empty web application. I'm going to do a fully scaffolded web application. I'm going to press enter. And look what's nice about the new Yeoman generator. We can pick what UI framework we have. If we want to do Bootstrap 3.3.6 or Semantic UI, which is a very nice responsive design framework, I'm going to pick Semantic. And then I'm going to name my application first app. And then it's going to build all of my dependencies associated in my application. It's installing Bower and all of its dependencies in my application as well. So all of that is going inside of my folder here. And you can see my first app folder generated. It's implementing Gulp, all of the dependencies to associate with my ASP.NET Core scaffolded web application. You can see all of that. It's implementing jQuery, Semantic, jQuery validation. This is what's so nice about the Yeoman generator. Typically in your Mac OS X and Linux environments, this is typically what you're going to do. In Windows environments, you will utilize most of the time Visual Studio. So right now we have our app. Let's go ahead and move our PowerShell command over here. Let's see what we have generated right here. So we have our first app, we have our controllers, our models, our www root folder. And now what it's telling us, it's giving us all the different commands. We have to go into the directory of our first app, which we're outside of that. So let's go cd first app. And now that we're in the first app, it gives us some of the commands we can run. We're going to run the .NET restore to restore all the dependencies associated in our application. We can also build our application, but this will happen if we do .NET Run. And then we also can do .NET EF database update. We'll go into Entity Framework Core later when we start building our database schema. So let's go right now to .NET Restore again. On Mac OS X and Linux, I will also implement this. So let's do .NET Restore. So we're going to restore all the dependencies associated with our app. It's going to restore all those NuGet packages associated in our ASP.NET Core application. And now that it's restored all of those dependencies, let's do .NET Run. And it's compiling our app, giving the expected outcome to associate with .NET Core App version 1. So the compilation was successful. And now we have our app listening on HTTP localhost port 5000. So we can just come in here, copy that, and we can go to our web browser. And we can see our scaffolded application. And look at that. That's a semantic UI scaffolded ASP.NET Core application. The nice implementation of this is that in the previous generator, you were confined to that bootstrap template. Now we have this nice semantic version if we want to utilize semantic UI. And you can see all of the HTTP requests as they come into our application. Go to a contact form, go to our login form, and then also go to our sign-up form. So this is how we build a console application with ASP.NET Core, and this is how we build it utilizing Node.js, Yeoman, and utilizing the YoASP.NET generator. And this is how we build our first scaffolded application. In the next lecture, we will build our application utilizing Visual Studio 2015. And then in the next lectures, we will go into Linux and Mac OS X implementation of the new .NET Core version. I want to thank you for joining me in this lecture. Have a nice day.